Good afternoon, everyone. This is Annie Grace Alice Canyo, and I am going to discuss with you the bacterial infection for both eyes and skins. So first and foremost, what is bacterial infection? A bacterial infection is a proliferation or the growth or multiplication of a harmful strain of bacteria on or inside our body. So the first skin condition is the acne. So the acne is a skin condition that occurs when your hair follicles become plugged or blocked with oil and dead skin cells. So those blockage produces later on a blackheads, whiteheads, and other types of pimples. So this is the most common among teenagers, though it affects of all ages. There are actually a variety of causes for the pimples. However, the most causes includes the stress, the hormonal levels, fluctuating hormonal levels, the genetics, or if you have a history for the acne already, and for the usage of oily and greasy personal products. So for the pathogens of acne, this includes the Propionibacterium acnes and the Propionibacterium spp. So a pathogen is a organism that can cause diseases. So this includes bacteria, fungi, protozoa, worms, and viruses. For the reservoir, this is the habitat wherein the agents normally lives, growth, or multiply. So this is commonly living things. So for the acne, the reservoir is the infected humans, and the mode of transmission of this is not contagious. All for the laboratory diagnosis is made on clinical grounds. There are actually some medicines that is given for you by the doctors or skin specialists, and there are actually some ways like lasers just to reduce or to minimize the growth of your acne. Another skin condition is the anthrax. This is also known as Wool-Schuster's disease. This can be found naturally in soil and commonly affects the domestic and wild animals around the world. So we have the cutaneous anthrax, which is the depressed blackened lesions called eschars as a result of a necrotoxin. There are 4 types of anthrax. The inhalation, which develops when you breathe in anthrax spores, gastrointestinal, which develops after eating contaminated meat, the pulmonary, which includes the inhalation of airborne germs, and lastly, the cutaneous, which I discussed earlier, which results from the exposure to the spores of B. anthracis. For the pathogen of anthrax, this is the Bacillus anthracis, which is an encapsulated spore-forming gram-positive bacillus. For the reservoir, this includes anthrax-infected animals as well as the pores that may be present in soil, animal hair, and products made from them. So for the mode of transmission, the transmission occurs via entry of endospores through breaks in the skin, inhalation of spores, or ingestion of bacteria and contaminated milk. For the laboratory diagnosis, this is done through several processes such as the immunodiagnostic procedures, which is diagnosed by isolation of B. anthracis from blood, lesion identification using biochemical or enzyme-based tests. So for the patient care, we use standard precautions for hospitalized patients. Another infection is the gas gangrene. So gas gangrene is also called as clostridial mononucleosis. This is a death of body tissue and usually occurs at the site of a trauma or a recent surgical wound. So this is a rare condition. What actually happens in gas gangrene? First, Clostridium spores, which is the bacteria that causes gas gangrene, enters or germinates in a wound. After that, vegetative pathogens produce necrotizing exoenzymes and toxins. So these two can cause the death of a tissue. So after that, gases are released which can cause the death of the tissue, and there will be later on the formation of pocket gas. For the pathogens, this includes the Clostridium perfringens, which is the most common cause of gas gangrene, and other Clostridium SPG, which can also cause this condition. The reservoir is the soil, which is humans become infected when soil containing Clostridial spores enters in our open wound. So the mode of transmission of this is not naturally transmitted from person to person. This is not person-to-person transmission does not occur. For the laboratory diagnosis, microscopy of gram-stained impression smears is being processed and also skin culture to the test. And for the patient care, use standard precautions for hospitalized patients. Another disease for the skin condition is the leprosy. Leprosy is more commonly known as Hansen disease. So Hansen disease is named from Gerard Armstrong Hansen, or J. Hansen's, because he was the one that discovered the bacillus that causes leprosy during the dates of 1373. Leprosy causes severe disfiguring skin sores and nerve damage in the arms, legs, and skin areas. This is also one of the oldest diseases in recorded history. There are two forms of leprosy: the lepromatous leprosy, which can be seen as a numerous nodules in skin and eyes. On the other hand, tuberculoid leprosy is a mild, less and severe form of leprosy. For the pathogens of leprosy, this includes the Mycobacterium leprae, which is an acid bacillus. For the reservoir, the infected humans serve as a reservoir, and for the mode of transmissions, it is by nasal secretions or droplets or broken skin. Another infection for the skin is the staphylococcal skin infection. So, staphylococcal infection is a common bacterial skin infection. This involves a bacteria of staphylococci. These are the examples of staphylococcal skin infections. First and foremost, the furuncles, which is the infection of the hair follicle and other surrounding tissue. So this is the furuncle. So furuncles or boils can grow to be larger than a golf ball, and they occur commonly on our buttocks, face, necks, and armpits. Another is the carbuncles, which is the cluster of furuncles connected. So this is the carbuncle. Folliculitis, which is the condition in which hair follicles become inflamed. So this is the folliculitis. Another one is the abscesses, which is a painful collection of a pus. This is a abscess. And for the impetigo, this is a contagious skin infection that causes blisters. This is common in infants and young children. This is an example of the impetigo. And lastly, for the scalded skin syndrome, this causes peeling skin over large parts. So the same is true with impetigo. This is also common to the children and babies. Most staphylococcal infections are caused by the Staphylococcus aureus. However, the impetigo is caused by another bacteria, which is the Streptococcus pyogenes, which is also another gram-positive coccus. Infected humans serve as the reservoir, and transmission occurs via direct contact with a person having the said infections. For the laboratory diagnosis, the infected strain must be isolated on a culture media and identified using the phenotypic characteristics such as the reaction in biochemical and enzyme-based tests. Other than that, susceptibility testing must also be performed because many strains of Staphylococcus aureus are multi-drug resistant. And now we are going to discuss the streptococcal skin infection. First infections for the streptococcal infection is the impetigo. This is a superficial bacterial skin infection that is highly contagious. So this is a non-bolus impetigo. So how does streptococcal impetigo develops? First, this begins as a papules. So a papules look like a tiny rusted bump on the skin. After that, the papules will now evolve to the pustules. So these pustules are small bumps on the skin that contain fluid or the pus. And lastly, pag pustules na siya, this will break down to form the crusty lesions. So these are the crusty lesions. Next skin infection is the scarlet fever, or also known as scarlatina. This includes a widespread of a pink-red rash and is most obvious on the abdomen, sides of the chest, and in skin folds. So, when you have a scarlet fever, this is always accompanied by a sore throat and a high fever. So, this scarlet fever is the most common in children from 5 to 15 years of age. Another infection is the erysipelas, which is also known as the St. Anthony's fire. It is the infection of our upper layers of the skin, and which is the superficial form of cellulitis. Lastly, for the streptococcal skin conditions, we have the necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating bacteria. So this results in the death of parts of the body's soft tissues. Fasciitis is the inflammation of the fascia, which is the fibrous tissue that envelops the body beneath the skin and also encloses muscles and group of muscles. And now we will move on to the bacterial infection of the eyes. So first is the bacterial conjunctivitis. It is also called as a pink eye. This involves the irritation and reddening of our conjunctiva, edema of eyelids, and sensitivity to light. Bacterial conjunctivitis, this involves the Haemophilus influenzae, Aegyptus, and Streptococcus pneumoniae. However, many other bacteria can also cause this kind of disease. And for the reservoir and mode of transmission, infected humans serve as the reservoir. And for the mode of transmission, this disease is highly contagious, and human-to-human transmission might occur via the contact with eye and respiratory discharges. For the laboratory diagnosis, infections of the eye caused by bacteria and viruses should be differentiated from allergic manifestations. Therefore, microscopic examinations of the exudate or the oozing pus and culture of pathogens and immunodiagnostic procedures is being processed. Another eye condition is the chlamydial conjunctivitis. So in neonates, newborns, acute chlamydial conjunctivitis may result in mild scarring of conjunctivae and cornea. Another infection is the trachoma, or also known as the chlamydia keratoconjunctivitis. This is highly contagious, acute or chronic conjunctival inflammation which results in the scarring of cornea and conjunctiva. This is the world's leading cause of preventable blindness of infectious origin. The pathogen for this is the Chlamydia trachomatis, and the reservoir and the mode of transmission includes infected humans serve as reservoir, and transmission occurs via direct contact with infectious ocular or nasal secretions. This trachoma is diagnosed by microscopic observation of intracellular chlamydial elementary bodies in epithelial cells. And after that, cell culture techniques and immunofluorescence procedures is being processed na. And for the patient care, yun nga, use standard precautions for hospitalized patients. Last eye condition is the gonococcal conjunctivitis, which is also known as the gonorrheal ophthalmia neonatarum. This is an acute redness and swelling of conjunctiva and purulent discharge. Gonococcal conjunctivitis is caused by Neisseria gonorrhea, which is a kidney bean-shaped gram-negative Diplococcus. So this and gonorrhea is also known as the gonococcus or GC. For the reservoir and mode of transmission, infected humans, especially the infected maternal birth canal, serve as the reservoir. And for the transmission occurs via contact with the infected birth canal during the delivery. For the laboratory diagnosis, gonococcal conjunctivitis is diagnosed by microscopic observation of a gram-negative diplococci in smears and isolation of gonorrhea on appropriate culture media. For the patient care, we use the standard precautions for the hospitalized patients.